हरिओम। मैंने सोचा कि महाभारत, जिसको कि हम पांचवा वेद मानते हैं, उससे हमें जो ज्ञान मिलता है, अब बहुत बहुत बड़ा ग्रंथ है। उससे हमें जो ज्ञान मिलता है उसका न्यूरोसाइंटिफिक एंगल क्या है, उस विषय में कुछ अपने विचार प्रकट करूं। इस इच्छा से मैंने यह प्रस्तुति आपके समक्ष लाने की प्रयत्न किया है। मना एव मनुष्याणां कारणं बन्धमोक्षयोः, द महाभारत and the human brain, the neuroscience of attention, emotion, and decision making. This is the agenda of today's talk. Everyone knows Arjuna, Krishna, Bhishma, Duryodhana, Karna, and Draupadi, and yet very few people realize that the Mahabharata is also a profound study of the human mind. So I thought it's a perfect time, good timing to share some thoughts on the attention, emotions, and the science of human decision making based on the knowledge acquired from the fifth Veda called Mahabharata. महाभारत जो है पांचवा वेद है और गीता प्रेस गोरखपुर द्वारा प्रकाशित ग्रंथ, जो कि समय मिलने पर मैं भी पढ़ता हूँ। इसकी बहुत उपयोगिता है। तो महाभारतम एवं मस्तिष्क विज्ञानम ध्यानम भावना निर्णय शक्ति च, इस विषय पे अपने विचार मैं प्रस्तुत करूंगा। नमस्कारः। महाभारतं केवलं युद्धस्य कथा नास्ति। Most people think that the Mahabharata is the story of war, but that's not the case. एषः ग्रन्थः मानव मस्तिष्कस्य भावनानां, निर्णयानां, चित्तस्य च गहनः अध्ययनग्रन्थः अस्ति। आधुनिक तांत्रिका विज्ञानं यत् अद्य अनुसन्धानद्वारा ज्ञातुम् इच्छति, तस्य बहवः प्रश्नाः महाभारते पूर्वमेव चर्चिताः दृश्यन्ते। So Mahabharata is just not a story of war. It is equally a study of the human brain. It explores attention, memory, emotional regulation, stress, leadership, addiction, impulsivity, and wisdom. Many questions being investigated today in neuroscience were already being explored through characters and narratives in Mahabharata. So we are going to talk about that in today's lecture. So first of all, Arjuna's breakdown, the neuroscience of anxiety. Arjuna's anxiety at the start of the war. So Kurukshetra is the place where the two warring parties came together to have the war. Dhritarashtra asks Dharmkshetre Kurukshetre samveda yutsavah mamakaah pandavaschaiva kim kurvat samjaya. So Dhritarashtra asked about what exactly was going on at Dharmkshetre Kurukshetre, at that place which they called Dharmkshetra Kurukshetra, righteousness. So When Arjuna reaches Kurukshetra, he develops anxiety, trembling, weakness, inability to focus, emotionally overwhelmed with indecision. In Bhagavad Gita, he says that Gandivam samsrate hastat tvakchaiva paridahyate. My bow slips from my hand, my skin burns. This is how he describes it in Gita, chapter 1, which is part of Mahabharata. These symptoms are classic physiological manifestations of stress. Modern neuroscience identifies hyperactivation of the amygdala as the mechanism. The amygdala acts as the brain's threat detector. So when the amygdala is excessively activated, the attention narrows, rational thinking declines, fear dominates decisions, and Arjuna demonstrates exactly this state before the start of the war. Even though the war was a necessity, still Arjuna says to Krishna that, hey, my dear Krishna, seeing my friends and relatives present before me in such a fighting spirit, I feel the limbs of my body are quivering and my mouth is drying up. My whole body is trembling. My hair is standing on end. My bow, Gandiva, is slipping from my hand and my skin is burning. I'm now unable to stand here any longer. I'm forgetting myself and my mind is reeling. I see only causes of misfortune, O Krishna, killer of the Kasi demon. I do not see how any good can come from killing my own kinsmen in this battle, nor can I, my dear Krishna, desire any subsequent victory, kingdom, or happiness. He further tells Krishna that, O Govinda, of what avail to us are a kingdom, happiness, or even life itself, when all those for whom we may desire them are now arrayed on this battlefield. They're here in this battlefield. O Madhusudana Krishna, when teachers, fathers, sons, grandfathers, maternal uncles, father-in-laws, grandsons, brother-in-law, and other relatives are ready to give up their lives and properties and are standing before me, why should I wish to kill them, even though they might otherwise kill me? O maintainer of all living entities, I'm not prepared to fight with them, even in exchange for the 3 worlds, let alone this earth. What pleasure will we derive from killing the sons of Dhritarashtra? Sin will overcome us if we slay such aggressors. Therefore, it is not proper for us to kill the sons of Dhritarashtra and our friends. What should we gain, O Krishna, husband of the goddess of fortune? And how could we be happy by killing our own kinsmen? How will be happy by killing our own family member? This is what he's saying. He's completely confused. He's completely confused about the situation. So when the amygdala acts as the brain's threat detector, when it is excessively activated, the attention narrows, rational thinking declines, and fear dominates the decision. And Arjuna was demonstrating all this. So who is the neuroscientist here? Krishna. Krishna, as the neuroscientist of the mind, preaches him Gita. Krishna does not immediately advise fighting, however. He's not asking him to straight away get into the war. He first stabilizes Arjuna's cognition. his intervention includes cognitive reframing. What Bhagavan Krishna is doing is offering an intervention, which is cognitive reframing. Modern psychotherapy calls this cognitive behavioral therapy. Krishna changes Arjuna's interpretation of events. The battlefield remains unchanged. Arjuna's perception changes. The battlefield just stays the way it was, but the perception of Arjuna changes thanks to the greatest neuroscientist of the world, Krishna, if I may put it this way. And forgive me, I'm no expert on religious elements. I'm just an interested person, interested in our Indian spirituality, Indian Shastras, Vedas, Puranas, Mahabharata, and other texts. And as a neuroscientist, as a neurologist, I'm looking into how our Shastras can be extremely useful or can potentially be useful to our communities, and how we can appreciate the knowledge with also a neuroscientist's outlook. So let's talk about Duryodhana now. Duryodhana, the son of Dhritarashtra. So his name evokes the thoughts around the neuroscience of addiction and bias. Addiction and bias. One of the most famous verses, Janami dharmam nachama pravrittihi. Janami dharmam nacha me pravrittihi, janamya dharma nacha me nivrittihi. I know what is right, but cannot do it. I know what is wrong, but cannot stop. I know what is right, but cannot do it. And I know what is wrong, but cannot stop. We human beings are oftentimes confronted with this situation where we know what is right, but we struggle to take the right action. Gita is about that, teaching us how to take the right action. It says in Gita that yadyada charati shreshtastat devettaro janah sayat pramanam karute lokas tadanu vartate. As the great people perform great tasks, the common people follow that example. So to achieve greatness, you have to train your mind such that when you know what is right, you do the right thing. When you know what is wrong, you don't do the wrong things. Neuroscience shows that knowledge alone does not change behavior. Knowledge alone does not change behavior. We have the top universities in the world where people go and study and gain the knowledge of science, maths, engineering. But we are talking about a different kind of knowledge here. Knowledge alone does not change behavior. Reward circuits can overpower rational circuits. Reward circuits in the brain can overpower the rational circuits. So we have to help build the rational circuits in the human beings, in our communities, in our society. The rational circuit, the circuit that makes a person do the right thing. Despite all odd, we should do what is right. That's what our Shastras teach us. That's what our Shastras teach us. And there are ways to train ourselves and our community and our kids. So the brain regions, let's talk about them. Prefrontal cortex. It's responsible for planning, morality, impulse control. Limbic system. It's responsible for desire, reward seeking, emotional drives. Duryodhana repeatedly. So Duryodhana repeatedly allows the emotional drives to overpower rational judgment. He allows emotional drives to overpower rational judgment. His story resembles what neuroscience would call cognitive bias, reward dependency, and impulsivity. Cognitive bias, reward dependency, and impulsivity. Now let's think about Shakuni. He is remembered for his ability to manipulate human cognition. He understands attention, emotion, reward, and modern behavioral economics studies similar principles. Humans often make irrational decisions because emotions dominate reasoning. Immediate rewards outweigh future risks. The dice game in Mahabharata demonstrates decision-making under emotional pressure, a phenomenon extensively studied today. Now let's talk about Yudhisthira, another character known for his dharma. He is to be called Dharmaraj Yudhisthira. And his example makes us think about executive function. He represents delayed gratification. Yudhisthira represents delayed gratification, the ability to sacrifice short-term reward for long-term benefit. And this ability is linked to prefrontal cortex maturity. Research consistently demonstrates that individuals capable of delaying gratification often experience better academic outcomes, improved health, and better emotional regulation. Now let's talk about Bhishma. He is an example of cognitive reserve and aging. He's so old in the story. He's the oldest. But he remains intellectually sharp despite advanced aging. He's intellectually sharp. He's very intellectually sharp. Everyone goes and seeks his blessings and seeks knowledge of dharma from him. Modern neuroscience studies cognitive reserve. What factors increase cognitive reserve is the area of my personal research interest. Bhishma Pitamaha is an example of lifelong learning, meditation, discipline, and intellectual engagement. He exemplifies this principle. His wisdom, accumulated over decades, remains accessible despite his physical decline. Now let's think about another interesting, very important character, Abhimanyu. Does memory form before birth? The story of Abhimanyu suggests that Abhimanyu learned military strategy while he was in the mother's womb. Scientifically thinking, we should not interpret this literally. However, modern science does confirm that prenatal learning exists. Fetuses can recognize maternal voice, respond to sound, show memory for repeated stimuli. So the Mahabharata may preserve an ancient intuition regarding the importance of prenatal environment. Now, Draupadi, she's an example of trauma and resilience. She experienced humiliation at the hands of her own family members, exile, repeated adversity. Yet she maintains purpose and agency. Modern neuroscience calls this psychological resilience. Psychological resilience. Protective factors include social support, meaning, spirituality, and purpose. These factors reduce the harmful effects of chronic stress. Then the Mahabharata is replete with examples of meditation. Many Mahabharata heroes engage in dhyana, tapasa, swadhyaya, meditation, discipline, and self-study. Modern neuroimaging demonstrates that meditation can influence the attention networks, emotional regulation, stress responses, neuroplasticity. Regular contemplative practices changes the brain. Then the ultimate neuroscience of the Gita. Krishna repeatedly emphasizes Uddher re datmanam atmanam, raise yourself by your own mind. Uddhare datmanatmanam. Modern neuroscience agrees. Raise yourself by your own mind. Repeated thoughts strengthen the neural pathways. This principle is called neuroplasticity. The brain becomes what it repeatedly practices. So we should practice the positive thoughts. That's why I talk a lot about Sandhya Vandan, Gayatri. Just not reciting, but also understanding the meaning of these mantras. They are very beautiful mantras. Swasti Vachan, very beautiful meaning. Just not chanting for the sake of chanting, but also understanding the meaning. Because when the good ideals, good thoughts reverberate in our mind, they become ingrained in our conscience. And if those values are imparted to the kids from the very early age, it can lead to, and that's my hypothesis. That's my hypothesis. It can lead to them having great ideals and perform very well as a best citizen. So, Mahabharatam kevalam itihasah nasti. Etat manav mastiskasya vishwakoshah asti. Arjunah asmakam chinta. Duryodhana asmakam lobha. Bhishma asmakam pragya. Draupadi asmakam dhairyam. Krishna asmakam vivekah. महाभारत केवल युद्ध की कथा नहीं है, यह मानव मन की कथा है। अर्जुन हमारे भय का प्रतीक है, दुर्योधन हमारे लोभ का, द्रौपदी हमारी दृढ़ता की, भीष्म हमारे बुद्धि का और श्री कृष्ण हमारे विवेक के। The Mahabharata is not merely a story of kings and battles. It is a map of the human brain. Arjuna represents anxiety. Duryodhana represents impulsivity. Draupadi represents resilience. Bhishma represents wisdom. Krishna represents higher cognition. The battlefield of Kurukshetra exists not only in ancient India, it exists inside every human brain every day. And perhaps that is why the Mahabharata remains eternally relevant. So, I would encourage everyone to read Mahabharata, understand it. It's a big, voluminous text, but the stories impart a lot of values, share a lot of scientific principles related to not only human cognition, but other strategies, war strategies, king's strategy, how to rule your own people in the kingdom, and stuff like that. So it's a very, very strong, it's a great text. And therefore, it's rightly called the fifth Veda. So with this, I will stop. I will attempt to elaborate on the individual items as we move along on this topic. As we move along on this topic of the neuroscience of Mahabharata. Hari Om. Om Namah Shivaya.